The MRAP lunged forward into the dog run, impacting hard with the crowd ahead of it. Primals bounced off the tubular steel brush guard, as others were caught in the heavy tread tires and pulled to the ground. The MRAP slowed, but continued to lurch forward as the vehicle's big wheels ground through bodies and caught traction on the frozen ground. Brad flinched at the sounds of bones breaking and skulls popping under the weight of the 17-ton vehicle. He cringed, knowing that each of the snaps and pops was a once human body being destroyed. "She does okay in the hordes of zombies if you keep speed up," Palmer said, not taking his eyes off the primal-covered path ahead. The man held the wheel steady, like he was driving through thick drifts of snow as they approached the break in the wire. "The turns can get tricky. These vehicles have such a high center of gravity they want to tip on you in a sharp turn." Brad grunted and reached out for a handhold to steady himself as the vehicle bounced over another bunch of infected. "Well, let's not roll over then," he said, gasping for air after being thrust back into the seat. Palmer made the turn through the break in the fence and had begun to straighten the wheel when a mortar struck just to their front, tossing mud and blood across the windshield. Palmer flipped on the wipers, and when the ground cleared, Brad saw a bit of wire frag embedded in the glass block to his front. "Son of a bitch!" Palmer shouted, pointing at the chunk of broken glass. "You know how hard it is to find replacement glass for these things?" He cussed again. Mashing the gas and cutting the wheel through the mob, he navigated into the open ground before cutting back toward the field full of infected. Another mortar struck just to their right. Palmer ignored it, keeping the MRAP on course. He shook his head, saying, "It's a real cowardly way to attack a place, letting the zombies do all the heavy lifting." Brown pulled himself into the cab. "Can those bombs hurt us?" he shouted over the roar of the engine and screaming infected outside. "Nope," Palmer answered without looking back. "Even a direct hit from those little mosquito bombs won't hurt this girl. It would take some real arty to penetrate Big Bertha. No offense, ma'am," he said, throwing a half-hearted nod toward Chelsea. The driver cut the wheel again. This time Brad felt it lean to one side before Palmer corrected and straightened them out. They approached a snow-covered incline, and Brad could feel the wheels slip as they pushed through the mass of primals in deep icy snow. The ride grew smoother, and, leaning forward, Brad could see they'd moved over the high embankment and onto a blacktop road covered with a thin layer of snow. Palmer kept the bearing for another 200 feet before he pointed at the door mirror on Brad's side of the MRAP. The factory was fading behind them. "They're following just like we wanted," Palmer said. "Market is just ahead. You want me to pull right up on it?" "You sure they don't have anything that can hurt us?" Brad asked. Palmer shook his head. "Only thing I'm sure of is if you unass this truck, them damn zombies will be making a quick meal out of you." Brad acknowledged the comment and dipped his head forward. "Hell then, yeah, take us right up to it. Getting smoked by anti-tank weapons gotta beat getting eaten by a primal." "I knew I liked you," Palmer laughed. The man slowed the vehicle as he approached an intersection that was only identifiable by a stop sign flapping in the wind. Palmer came to a hard stop, ensuring the primals were still following before he cranked the wheel hard and turned them onto a road heading north. "Store's just ahead. Used to be a mom-and-pop gas station. Pumps are all dry now. Store's picked over for anything useful months ago. Mostly zombies will be lurching around, but keep an eye on the tree line for the fast ones." Brad looked in the mirror and could see that the mass of infected were still pursuing them when the vehicle again slowed and veered into the market's parking lot. It wasn't much, a blue-sided building with a pair of gas pumps out front. Every window in the place was broken. A pair of burned-out cars sat rusted in parking spaces. In front, the large storefront was destroyed, the doors missing and shelves knocked over so that it was possible to see deep into the building. Even the glass doors on the coolers were shattered, allowing a clear view behind them. Looking to the roofline, he couldn't see any movement. Brad ordered Palmer to stop, and he climbed into the back of the MRAP. "We can't hold long," Palmer said. "Bertha has got horsepower, but let too many of them things wrap around us and get to pushing and grinding? Well, too many of these things and she starts to lose traction in the gore, if you know what I mean." Brad frowned. "Yeah, I think I know," he said, moving to the center of the MRAP and reaching up for the hatch. The military-issued turret had been removed, and what used to be a glass block-covered cupola had been replaced with a simple steel hatch with 360 degrees of viewing ports. Brad took a quick scan and couldn't see any infected closer than a half-mile, although they were closing on them fast. "We clear?" he called out to those below him. "Shit, no!" Palmer screamed back. "Those things are getting closer by the second. If you're intending on doing something stupid, you only got a minute or two before they're all over us.